IntellectualRadio.com. Feed your brain.
Feed me now.
Feed your brain.
I'm starving.
Welcome to Rize. It is your boy Robert Lee Orr Jr. I got my girl in the house with me. So Rize, let me y'all to Rize up with me while I introduce my girl. Chicago. From the south side of Chicago, Illinois. Let's give it up for Bonita Asset. Man, I had to break the drums out. Man, every week, man, Ernest come in here with a dashiki on. You come in here with your Black Panther, mother of the earth, from wherever, you know. So
Look,
I was
you see, you like my black magic earrings?
I see your whole
the
vibe going
yeah.
on. You got
I got my unk hat on.
You got your unk
yeah,
hat.
I got a little black and
What you trying to say?
costume.
Are you trying to say something? What exactly are you trying to say? You gonna ask me what the whole motive of everything we do? You got all deep on me. So what are you trying to say with your black magic on?
I'm trying to say that I'm black and magical.
Man, in case you didn't know, you are listening to Rize on Intellectual Radio. You can go to the website and subscribe to IntellectualRadio.com. Make sure you do that. Make sure you stop what you're doing. Go to Intellectual Radio page and subscribe. You can also go to YouTube and subscribe on the YouTube channel if you want to catch all of the content. All of the shows is over here, Intellectual Radio. And if you have any type of interest about a show in Intellectual Radio, call the number is 708-223-8953. Again, the call-in number is 708-223-8953. You know, first of all, I want to be able to say my man Ernest is not feeling well. So we just want to send some prayers up to Ernest, make sure that he recovers well. I mean, the season just not getting started. It's just not turning cold outside. It's been pretty cold this week. To me, it's been cold to me. It's been chilling me down to the bone. But anyway, Miss Asset, I want to talk about, first of all, give some love to our Facebook people who follow us. We just started a Rize page. Tell everybody about the Rize radio page.
The Rize radio page is on Facebook, and you're welcome to check us out. And soon to come will be all the other social medias.
Right. And we're going to make sure we post a question on there every day. I mean, once a week, at least once a week, a few questions a week so that you guys can chime in. And last week we posted, what can't black people, what can't you do as a black person in America? That is the question for today. What can't you do as a black person in America? And hopefully sometime during this show, we will make time to read some of the comments that's coming from some of the listeners, some of the people who follow the questions and the stuff that we post. We have a special guest in the building today, Mr. Jason Perry. He's coming here to talk about a few things. We're going to really push his head today. We're going to push him up against the wall. He always prepared. You know what I'm saying? He ain't going to get on this radio show and act like he ain't got nothing to talk about. He always talking a hole in, my ears. So, we're going to make sure that the audience get a chance to hear everything he has to say. So we're going to put him up to the task. So if you have any questions about any commentary that you want to have with him when he comes on, make sure you call the number 708-22953. And the last thing we want to mention is 8 o'clock is the what, Benita?
Wait a Jose minute. Jose should be calling in or will be calling in to holler at us around 8 o'clock.
Mm.
And then at 8:30, we got Moses Chronicles, an ode to Moses Chronicles. He's going to give us some touch-ups on what's going on in his life.
In his world.
Yeah, of a liberated lad.
Right, liberated lad.
You say it better than I do, though.
Liberated lad.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe not.
You say B. You know what I'm saying? I don't say B. I say duh. Lad.
I didn't say
Oh,
lab.
I thought you said
Did it come off as lab?
Sound like it.
I'm trying to say lad.
But anyway,
Yeah.
I want to touch on a subject you brought up on Facebook the other day.
Okay, I'm
Go
listening.
ahead. I want you to crank it off. Crank off the subject you brought up. You asked a question on there about the movie. I'm talking about Wakanda. So you got me all feeling Wakanda, So that's what made me wear my little shirt today. So I wanted you to talk about what you was talking about. Get the so I can get it. I want to answer your question now.
What I said
Hmm.
was, so see what happened was,
Hmm.
so seriously, we have a lot of people are really bothered with this Harriet movie. And it makes sense to me because the movie is not telling the truth. And so when every time you see somebody who posts boycott the movie, boycott the movie, boycott the movie, then there's always somebody within our community who says, why? Y'all didn't boycott. And then they go down the list of things that they feel we should have boycotted. Why are you boycotting Harriet? So one of the things that they said, well, you didn't boycott Black Panther. So then my response to that was, I was not all that happy about Black Panther either. It disappointed me in the end. And the reason it disappointed me in the end was because our brother T'Chaka, well, Injadaka,
Mm. Go ahead. I'm just listening.
Injadaka,
I'm not going to even try to. Go ahead.
Killmonger's African name,
Right.
he said that he wants to die like his ancestors. That's a choice he claims that at the end of the movie, you know how they make it. He says he makes his choice, and his choice is that he would want to die like his ancestors. Well, my response to that is BS. And the reason he worked hard to get to that point, he killed hundreds of people. His whole life's trajectory to get to that one particular point. And at that particular point, when he's there, like right on the verge of it, he's like, you know what? Forget it. Just kill me. I'll just die. That doesn't make any sense to me, none whatsoever. And the reason it doesn't make any sense to me, not just because of what I saw in the, but because of my life and the life of all of the other black people who are descendants of slaves. We are the descendants of those who did not commit, those who did not jump the bus. We are the descendants of those who don't quit, those who continue fighting. I remember my mother when I was in fifth grade. I'm not raising any quitters. I remember my sister when job interview and they asked her, they said, what would cause you to quit? She almost laughed in their face. Are you serious? And she went back and all the year before when she was working with them and she named da 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 all the things that they did to her on the job. The fact that I didn't know you didn't train me, but I kept working. The fact that you had me in a classroom with 40 kids, but I kept working. The fact that, and just going down the list. The same with so many other situations. We are not the product of quitters. We are the product of strategic maneuver.
Risers. We rise.
Right, we rise, shy rise. Strategic maneuvering folk. So then I tied that all into Harriet with, listen here, people. Eventually, we always come to a point where we're like, we cannot, will not, must not anymore. And so we'll get to a point where we finally say we want to boycott something. So we're at that point. When it comes to the whole Hollywood entertainment thing, we're done. We are done, done,
What do you mean by that?
done,
What do you mean
done,
done?
done watching slave movies,
Oh.
done watching black men look in a bad way, emasculated, done with all the lies. I just don't want to see that anymore. So I'm very, very happy boycotting the Harriet movie. I love Harriet. Actually, my mother, you know what she told me? My biblical character, the position that I am in life is Moses. And you know they call Harriet the woman called Moses.
Right.
So Harriet is very, very, very important to me. There's been several times that I've had friends, brothers have said to me, "Man, Benita, you sound like Harriet Tubman." So definitely, I respect and have a lot of honor for her, and I wish they had put together a real movie.
Right. I don't really. I'm so over the concept of boycotting something. I'm so over the concept. I'm just really over the concept because but I was watching this Byron Allen video interview at a Breakfast Club, and that interview it confirmed why I'm over the boycotting. Because when you talking about the case that's going on, the Comcast case that's going on against Byron Allen, they took him up to the Supreme Court, right? And the fight that Byron Allen is having is a concept called inclusion. And inclusion was a civil rights term that was in 1866 that basically stated it's a discrimination case. So he is like he posed a discrimination case, and that they're saying that you cannot prove 100% discrimination. It could be 99%, but the 1% could be like, well, we didn't like his shoulders when the way he did his interview. That 1% could be that's why we didn't include you. So it's a discrimination form case that you can never prove discrimination 100%. So my thing is with that as a reality of what's hurting us more so than anything else in our society, the not being included into the real financial economic structure of our society, boycotting doesn't touch that reality. It doesn't even touch it. And I'm just tired of having that concept about boycotting as
I'm
if
lost. Boycotting doesn't touch what reality?
the what we're getting excluded from. We're getting excluded from the whole economic structure of what really makes this society function. The opportunities to invest, opportunities to be on the upper echelon of any investment, any business models, and having control of that. We are getting excluded from it, and we boycott just to, in a certain sense, get some kind of emotional pattern of um, um, uh, frustration off to say, hey, why are you treating us like this? We want equality. And when you in a racism, the concept of racism in and of itself is race. It's a competition, right? You're in a competition, right?
Okay.
So if you're in a competition, if I'm winning, I'm not gonna let you get some type of benefit to give you leverage. So we boycotting for better footing, better leverage. And when you're looking at who we saying is discriminating against us, not to allow us to have leverage, what really is boycotting doing?
So let's say this. Out of the some 2,000 places where they put this movie, theaters, what if every black person said, I'm not going to go watch the movie?
Okay.
What do you think would happen to that movie? What do you think would happen to the people who produced that movie? Who put their monies into it? They expect us to go and watch it. They expect us to pay for that movie. They expect to make money off of us. They expect 12, 15 million dollars the first weekend that movie is open. Why? They don't expect those dollars to come from white people. They expect those dollars to come from black people. So the boycott is to say, black folks, do not give your money to this movie. So then if they had a $12 million expectation, but they ended up with a $0 expectation, then what?
Well, that's what boycotting says.
Right.
But if you
said
serious
you're
about
opposed to
boycotting, then you have to have a premeditated mindset not to invest in anything that doesn't represent you, doesn't support what your causes are. That it goes beyond boycotting.
Okay, so
Is
I
what
think
I'm saying.
I think what I'm hearing you say is not that you're against boycotting, but that you would like to see that
A premeditated mindset,
a long set
right?
extension.
A premeditated mindset of you boycott today, but you feel better next week
Like
about
you go back to eating a Popeye's chicken
yeah,
sandwich
right,
tomorrow.
right. This movie doesn't carry the same theme as the other one did, so you'll go support that one, and it's still getting what you will call injected into you. You still participating and helping fund
And I
things
think
that you say
that's
against in the society.
well, at least what I'm saying, and what I've been hearing a lot of sisters and brothers say is, I'm done with the slave movies. I'm done with the emasculating black man movies. I'm done. So and when I say I'm done, that means I don't want to see another one of these. Hollywood is going to have to change if they really want us to support what they make. Hopefully, our brother Tyler will pull it out and get us, with that studio he has, we'll start making entertainment that we want to see.
Yeah. Maybe Tyler Perry. It's a whole bunch of people can be making.
Well, I mean, a lot like,
Yeah.
this
I'm just saying we got
like, for instance, you and I right now, this is edutainment.
Well, on the other side of the break, we're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna bring in our guest to jump in this conversation because I know he got a lot to say about everything that's going on. And we're gonna hit up the conversation about toxic masculinity. We're gonna tie it all in. We're gonna get it all in. You're listening to Rize Radio on IntellectualRadio.com.
IntellectualRadio.com. Feed your brain.
Feed me now. I'm starving.
Welcome back to Rize Radio. Robert E. Orr Jr. My girl Benita Asset. Girl, turn that off.
I don't know why that's doing that.
Turn it.
Thank you for yelling at me. I appreciate that. Check me.
That's my toxic masculinity going on.
Get me in order.
That's my toxic masculinity. Anyway, we got my man in the building right now. Where you from? What city you from again?
Pembroke Township. Pembroke Township.
Oh, Pembroke.
From Pembroke Township. I don't even know what city that is. What city is that?
Pembroke Township.
That's it.
Jason Perry in the building.
Hopkins Park representing, baby.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
It's good to see you guys.
Good,
Thank
man.
you for having me today.
Oh, man, you know it's always a pleasure, man, when you make time for us, man.
No, man.
Very briefly, I want to, instead of going over this, this whole, what you call it, all these paragraphs of your experience, I just want to ask you quickly, very briefly, who is Jason Perry?
Who is Jason Perry?
Yeah.
I'm a father, husband, mentor, person who's committed to invest in my life and other people. Always looking to the next generation and trying to make a difference with my life to change the world to be what it's supposed to be. And I think most of all, I'm a man who loves God.
That's absolutely. I'm gonna filter some of these questions back in based off of some of your responses to things because a lot of it is relevant to what we're talking about. I know you heard some of the intro based off of you made a comment during the break. I just want you to chime in on that comment real quick. You said about boycotting.
Yeah. To me, I remember hearing people talk about, like Black Friday. They go boycott. Well, there's a problem. If you boycott Black Friday and then go spend your money on Saturday, what difference does it make? So taking money out of somebody else's pocket through a boycott does not put money in ours. It doesn't create generational wealth for us. It does not create capital acquisition for us. All it does is that we mad. We tell people we're mad, but that doesn't change. Changes the fruit, but doesn't deal with the roots. And so for me, I am really at a point in my life at this point, as I hit 6 decades. I'm tired of protest, marches, press conferences. In the wonderfully classy words of my grandma, either pee or get off the pot. If we're not going to make change, we need to do things that are going to affect real change. And if we're not going to do things that affect change, complaining about it doesn't make any difference. I've seen that for 60 years. I'm tired of complaining. Make a change. Make a change or be quiet.
I want to ask you a question. First of all, congratulations off of a position you just reconnected with at Living Springs Church, right?
Yeah.
It's a multicultural vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you this. Based on this immigration, just say illegal immigration as a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And immigration in and of itself, or the way the numbers in the United States of America are changing, is pushing blacks back down to more of a permanent minority.
Okay.
Would you say that? Would that be fair to say?
Go ahead and finish your point.
the question.
Yeah.
Question is, with this merger that you or reconnection that you have with a multicultural outreach, what does that do to the permanent minority status of blacks in America? I mean, what does that do if blacks in America turn into a minority status? How does that affect the cause for a relevancy of justice that we seek as blacks?
I don't think it affects it at all. I think that's a mindset. I think we keep defining ourselves in relation to somebody else as opposed to who we are. And when you're defining yourself in relation to somebody else, you only see yourself in relationship to them, not in the fullness of who you are. I remember my minor in college was marketing. And I remember this case study we did. And I believe it was when McDonald's was one of the first fast food places. Then when Burger King came out, Burger King's business plan said, we want to have X market share. We want to take so much of McDonald's market share. They didn't say we want to have this much market share in the whole country. We just want to take this much from McDonald's. So therefore, what they were doing, they constantly put themselves, we're always going to be second place. They didn't mind being second place. They didn't mind being second place. They just wanted
second place to McDonald's is still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. But what I'm saying is that mindset itself limits you. Mm-hmm. Instead of you saying, no, I'm going to be number one, you just said, no, I want to take some of what they have. And what I'm saying is that when we look at, it's funny, I printed something out because I wanted to make sure I said this. And this fits in with it. I think people are sometimes surprised when I say segregation helped Black people and integration hurt us. And integration hurt us from this standpoint. When we were segregated, we had to be self-sufficient. Doctors, lawyers, Indian chief, everybody was in the same community. We saw that. We were committed to the education of our children. And so when you go back to like Black Wall Street, a dollar passed through the hands of the community 100 times. Today, a dollar passes through the hands in the Black community 6 hours because we've moved out. And what often happened with integration, and again, is that the mindset was wrong sometimes, because what we looked at was, how do I compare us in terms of, instead of saying, who am I? And so when you're constantly comparing yourself to somebody else, your frame of reference is wrong, and you may be limiting yourself because you may be greater. But if you only think in terms of how I compare to you, then I may be limiting my greatness. And so what I'm saying is that from that standpoint, integration hurt us because we stopped striving for greatness and started striving to look like somebody else. Integration, the whole point of like integration with Brown versus Board of Education, it was never their intention to say, there was never the intention of the NAACP or the people who brought that lawsuit to say, oh, because you put me in a class with a white child, I will automatically be better. Being in the class with that child does not make them better. Giving me same opportunities, I will rise. You keep talking about, I will rise if you give me an opportunity. Not just because I'm in your presence does not make me better. Giving me an opportunity to rise because of my greatness is what makes me better.
You have seen that? You have seen that video with Jane Elliott? Her name is Jane Elliott.
Yep.
She had this experiment she did with these kids, and this experiment she put one day they had the blue-eyed kids.
Yep.
Then she told them that they was inferior to the brown-eyed kids.
Right.
And then the next day she switched the kids around, you know, and then the kids was doing better with their grades when they felt like they was superior. Right. And she asked them a question. She said, why did you think you were distracted, and why did you think you were doing poorly today? And they was like, because of this collar around my neck. It was this collar. I just couldn't think about anything but this collar, you know. And so it's like we can't say that. Oh, we know this has an impact on the expectations of how we're supposed to function, how we're supposed to be able to move forward. So it's one thing to say, well, all that stuff happened, we got to get over it, but all of the residual impact generationally,
right,
you know,
still
it's constant. It's a constant impact. What do we do with that reality? How do we shake from the constant impact?
I think that there has to be I think you got to be operating on several fronts at the same time. Yeah, we have to deal with institutionalized racism. You have to, because institutionalized racism perpetuates racism perpetually. It will, right? And so, yeah, you got to deal with those realities. But at the same time, while I'm fighting on that front, I also have to deal with who I am. Because you can remove all of the institutional elements of racism. You can move all of the policies. But if I'm still shackled in my brain, I'm still not going anywhere. So you still got to operate on both of those levels at the same time. I think that, yeah, we have to acknowledge, you got to deal with with all of the problems that institutionalized racism brings, with the policies and the things like that. Understand those things, but at the same time, when those shackles are lifted, when we see those openings, we got to be ready to run through.
Right.
You know, and so I think that it has to be both. I think we have to deal with both of those levels at the same time. You have to acknowledge the reality of institutionalized racism, but you also have to acknowledge the reality of internalized racism.
Yeah. I want to ask you, Benita, real quick. I want you to jump in here because your parents are mixed parents, right? You got mixed parents. You got a white dad and a black mom. And, like, how do you approach the subjects? You know, are you torn at all?
No.
From I just want you to explain, I guess. How do you because you got family on both sides.
You threw him a little bit. He was expecting you to say something else.
No, he knows better.
Right. I wanted you to explain. You know, it's kind of like how I think of President Obama, right? Everybody is expecting President Obama to be just like this straight militant black guy, like, in a way. But he has a white mom and a black father from Kenya. I mean, at his family reunion, he has on certain sides nothing but white people. So I'm like, what did you expect from his mindset? And I was just curious to know. You had firsthand, experience.
Well, I'm a lot more black than Barack Obama. One, because his black father is actually not from the United States, so that we have a different.
He's not native.
He's not born here.
Native.
He's not from here.
Yeah, he's from Kenya.
So we so that's a huge difference between us. In addition to that, both my parents are from United States, even though, one of my parents is white. My white father doesn't have ties to some other country. My white side can go back hundreds of years to here in the United States, and I don't know if we ever. Well, I shouldn't say we, because I know I didn't benefit from it. My father said that they were poor all their life, and he grew up in Texas. So his grandfather was poor. I think those who owned slaves were not poor. It's just a generation of wealth is what owning slaves does. Did. Like, for instance, I posted, this thing popped in my head, like how nice it could be if you could just like not have to work for a year, like a whole year. You have money, just whatever job you go to, somebody comes and works it for you just for 1 year. And if you start thinking about that, like all that extra time, what you could do with that time, how you can use that time to make more money. But imagine that they had that for hundreds of years. Okay. Well, anyway, but my parents, neither one of my parents had that. So my mother and father decided when they got married that their union was not going to end white supremacy. They knew better. So they made sure to rear their children to know better. And so that's the reason why I don't identify at all with being white. I never have. It's just not me.
Since you brought up, since Kenyans in the air, let's talk about our trip to Nairobi, Kenya. We went together. I want you to, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me enough masculinity in me when I almost changed my mind because of the flight. A lot of people don't know that we were on the exact same flight that crashed, the Ethiopian flight. It was the exact same model of a flight, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So I want you to describe Kenya, the reason, the purpose, and the reason why you make those trips to Kenya and some other. How many countries have you went to in Africa, the continent of Africa?
2 countries, Kenya and South Africa.
Oh, Kenya and South Africa. Mm-hmm. But you went about a total of 7 times?
9.
9 times. Mm-hmm. 9 times. So I want you to talk about one of the stereotypes that is surrounding a lot of, especially Kenya, about you're going on an outreach. People always ask you if you're going on an outreach mission.
I think some of the one of the stereotypes often is that Africa is just defined by poverty and defined by lack. In reality, Africa is a phenomenally wealthy continent. But I think that there's also, because of the way we sometimes stigmatize and stereotype people, I think sometimes people look at Africa, and every time they think of Africa, they think of what they saw in Tarzan and in the jungles. And I know there's a church that I'm connected with there, where I don't have any qualms, any hesitation of saying it might be the best church I've ever been involved with. Mm-hmm. And I've been involved with church for a long time. And the leaders there are some of the best leaders I've ever been around. And so I remember when I first came back, my first visit to Nairobi Gospel Center International, I came back and I told our church, don't ever use the term missions in dealing with them again. We can talk about being partners in ministry, but we don't talk about missions, because I'm humbled that they let me stand
absolutely
and lead there. And because of the quality of people and the quality of what they're doing. So I think one of the biggest stereotypes is that Africa is only about the Masai Mara and what you see on National Geographic. That's to me one of the biggest stereotypes that's so absolutely inaccurate. That's a part of of the continent, but that is not all of the content of the continent. And people are extraordinarily intelligent, smart, wise, brilliant people. And to me, that's part of my mission is to expose as many people as I can to blow up some of those stereotypes.
Right. The purpose of the reason why it was a men's conference and it was talking about they had masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to describe what toxic masculinity means to you and how it how it affects and how it's connected to a lot of the stereotypes that specifically Black men are dealing with.
Well, I can describe. Yeah, I have a definition that, let me read it if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I saw this definition. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong definition. So I'm not going to read it. I think toxic masculinity refers to this mindset or this set of very negative behaviors associated with men: hyper-aggressiveness, hypersexuality, emotional brokenness, emotional ignorance, those type of things. Those are some of the negative things that were associated with behavior. Some of those negative behaviors. And that's part of this toxic masculinity. My problem with the topic is I have several issues with it. One, toxic masculinity is one aspect or one form of masculinity. It is not the full orb nature of masculinity. It does not define masculinity. It describes some aspect of how men may behave. But I think that part of the problem I see right now is that we have begun, seems like culturally, we want to define all masculinity with that, paint all masculinity with that negative brush.
Like men can't cry, like men can't cry. That would be
that kind of emotional deadness and all that kind of stuff like that. So I don't think that illustration. This is not new or not. What's the word? I didn't coin this, but I heard someone use this illustration that a burger is a burger, and a cheeseburger is a burger with cheese on it. Okay, but you don't look because there's one burger with cheese on it and say all burgers are cheeseburgers.
Right.
So there's masculinity and then there's toxic masculinity. But toxic masculinity is one aspect of one form of masculinity. But just because one man does something that is toxic does not mean that all men are toxic. And so that's one issue, just in terms of broadening that definition, expanding that definition to include all men, I think is inaccurate. Two, I think to simply say I can't define toxic masculinity only in the forms of race. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever heard the term used, it had nothing to do with Black people. It had to do with Harvey Weinstein, I think. That was the first time I heard the term used. It had nothing to do with Black people. So I don't know why we've kind of taken that and go, oh, this is a description of Black people. Right. I don't know where that came from.
It's the same concept like with independent women. When you say independent women, you almost stereotypically think of Black women when from that coin phrase is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, strong and aggressive, but that's cold, for something else like that. But what I'm saying is that I refuse to take that term and say some kind of way, well, that describes us as Black men. It does not. I'm not toxic. I'm not taking that. And so.
Right. Lewis Williams on comments. He said it will never happen. The shackles will never be removed. We have to learn how to work with shackles on, because racism will never end. So we can get that thought out of our minds. Basically, be a Black man. To be a Black man, you just have to learn how to thrive in this racist system. And brothers and sisters are doing this every day. Lewis Williams said that. So
that's not connected to toxic masculinity. That's more about racism than.
Yeah, that was just
okay.
It was just a commentary on the conversation we had going on. But So when we went to Nairobi, a lot of those men were experiencing the same concepts in the toxic masculinity language, though. They was experiencing a
Yeah,
lot of the same.
yeah,
Um,
that's because they're men.
right.
If I went to Sweden, you'd get the same stuff.
Same stuff.
If I was in Brazil, we'd be hearing the same stuff. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with men do crazy stuff. And guess what? So do women. So you can't talk about it's not toxicity is not limited to masculine. There's also toxic females.
Right.
And so to say that this is only something that applies only men can be toxic, only black men can be toxic, is foolish to me. So it's just a condition of people that we don't always operate in the best possible way. We don't do the right thing sometimes. So
In all your years of experience, though, what do you think is a part of the solution about changing these narratives? Um, Sometimes I know as a mentor, sometimes I can get burnt out. One time I got burnt out
Mhm.
from being a mentor because a lot of people think that you have answers for sometimes it's about people. It's about uh, 9 times out of 10, if you're a mentor, if you something like that, every situation you go in is almost an unpredictable
Mhm.
pattern of thinking that need to occur in order for
Mhm.
you to get to the next step.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out with everything that this is a theme that we cannot really get rid of. These themes are these stereotypical themes that we cannot get rid of. That's why we always talk about them. Everybody got their roles that they play. Like some people are comedians, some people are this. But I know when I walk the city streets of Chicago, I want to be thinking a certain way. I want to think lolly 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 doo 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 doo. But reality strikes. Reality make things that's in the society make the way I want to walk, the utopia and the rhythm that I want to walk with, I can't walk that way. And 9 times out of 10, I see it's some condition of the man. It's some condition of the man that needs to be addressed. I want to laugh every day. Hey, hey, ain't nothing going on. Ain't nothing wrong. Man, I told you this story when I went to Walgreens. I went to Walgreens and went in there, and this is right before I got married. On the phone talking, yeah. Guy comes out, thought I was talking to him, and just stole on me. Bam, right? And we got the wrestling and scuffling. And then he got down. When I got him down, finally got him down. At first, it felt like I was losing this fight. When I got him down, I saw his eyes looked at high, whatever, and helped this guy up. And say, hey man, what's going on? Found out the young guy, young man. I don't know what made me do that. Now I attest that to God for the years of commitment being into mentorship, I think, right? But it interrupted my flow, my idea of my flow of what I thought a utopia is walking through life right now. That's why it's a subject. And I'm just figuring out what should our approach be to this community of individuals that is interrupting our flow. Go ahead.
Did you want to say
I
something?
don't think your flow was interrupted because of toxic masculinity. I think your
Mhm.
flow was interrupted because of being black. Like, I see you asked about solutions, you asked about constructive responses, and for me to deny the color, which is what everybody sees when the first thing they see, I don't think that's the most appropriate way. I think that's to accept and embrace and walk with. And hey, my color is black, this is who I am, this is what life is like for me, and understanding that we are prisoners of war. I don't think that that would have happened the same way to you if you were a white man.
You
I just
don't?
no.
Mm. Why you think that wouldn't
Well,
happen?
I don't think that brother would have stole on you
Mm.
if you were a white man.
Why?
Okay.
I think he would have thought about it twice.
Really?
And I think he would have not taken that liberty I think he would have recognized that he doesn't possess that liberty.
So that's almost go to my point.
No, the
Goes to
point
my
is that
point.
I think it goes maybe back to Mr. Perry's point, or Jason, that you can't brush every person with being toxic. Not only can you not brush all men or all black men, even particular men who are labeled toxic in this situation may not be toxic in that situation.
But
So
what you
him
said
making a
though,
choice to steal on you, he felt a little bit more comfortable to do that.
but why? That's what. See, that's why I say it goes to my point. You said that if he was a white man, he wouldn't have did it.
No, if you were white,
I mean, if I was a white man, he wouldn't have did it.
he would not have stolen
So
on you.
that's
Not in Walgreens parking lot on the
right.
south side. No.
And and for me, by you saying that, is why I feel like I'm bringing it up, and from the angle that I'm bringing it up, from the angle that I'm bringing it up, as a black man, my flow is stopped
Yes.
again
Your
because I'm black.
yes.
Now, regardless of where it's coming from, and it's all coming from men, whether it's a white man, black, it's all from men. This is a reality that I'm walking through as a black man. Sometimes things come from different angles from other men. And what is that?
Okay.
That's the question I'm sort of asking. What is that? Is that toxic masculinity?
Oh, you're asking the fact that your flow is stopped in the first place.
It's always from some
Are you
expression.
experiencing?
It's either some racism that's coming from some man, some from self-hatred, self-destructive behavior coming from some men, some discrimination that may be coming from some Mexicans or Hispanics. This is more.
So hold on. Are you asking the question? Are you a victim of toxic masculinity
Well,
or being a victim of racism?
we trying to
Are you trying
define
to? Is that what you're
toxic
asking?
masculinity. Which I'm trying to define. I'm trying to see if toxic masculinity is a thing and how is it connected. So
It is, but I think, to me, I think you've broadened it. You may have broadened it a little bit wider and applying it in some ways that I'm not sure if I would have necessarily applied it. Maybe.
who did? I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that, yeah, and maybe not. I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
There's a highlight. I think I did find what I wrote. I just simply said toxic masculinity is a description of a mindset that highlights and holds to very negative aspects of male behavior.
Wait, read that again.
Toxic masculinity is a description of a mindset that highlights and holds to very negative aspects of male behavior. And so that can apply to a number of different ways. And so, does that affect you in relationships? Yeah. Does it affect you on the streets of Chicago? Yeah. Does it affect you in a boardroom? Yeah. It can affect you in any number of different ways if men are not operating in the most positive way. So it can affect you in any number of different ways. I think my only saying, so I'm just simply saying that's not limited to race. That's all. That's my only point. I think it
Right.
affects that. It's just not limited to race. Yeah.
See, and I would say what happens, I would say that when the phrase toxic masculinity is used for black people, it's probably, or black men, it's probably not the most appropriate phrase.
Wow.
Because there's always something else. There's another problem and another problem and another problem, back to the root problem of white supremacy. So let's just say the brother was smoking, the brother hit you, the brother had a bad day, the brother, all of that stuff can go back to white supremacy.
Okay.
So anytime a black man is in a situation where somebody wants to label him as a masculine expression of a lot of negative things, how did he even get to that point in the first place?
Right.
And and so that's the reason why I personally would not. I can't imagine. I mean, you'd have to give me a big, gigantic scenario where racism, I would not be able to pull that out the hat.
Okay.
Like if we was going down the rabbit hole, we would never ever see racism as part of the problem. And for me, when it comes to black people, it is always the problem. It's not just the root problem. It's like the only problem and the worst problem. So for instance, let me give you a quick example. Say you are walking on the sidewalk and you trip and you fall on a crack. Now you might want to say, well, he's clumsy.
Mhm.
I would blame that on racism. And the reason I would is
You said
because
you would?
I would. And the reason I would is because white is always right. So what if a brother,
Say that again.
according to
Oh,
white supremacy,
oh.
white is always
Oh,
right?
I ain't
So
know.
say
Okay, yeah,
so say a brother.
I thought you had spazzed out.
So say a brother says to the foreman or the engineer or the whoever created the sidewalk, listen here, man, I don't think we should put cracks in the sidewalk. I think that we should have one continuous flowing sidewalk the same way we do streets. What you think about that?
Mhm.
And it would be an awesome idea. And I think that it would make it so that people would never trip over cracks anymore. And the white man says, no, this is how we've been doing it. This is how we're going to keep doing it. And we're going to do it like this.
Okay.
So that's my point. Like if we could go back through the trajectory, all the way back through the history from when the sidewalk was put there on earth, all the way up into Mr. Jason Perry tripping on the crack in the sidewalk, we could take that all the way back to the root of white supremacy. And that's the reason why I just don't feel comfortable labeling any black men as being toxically masculine.
Go ahead, because I'm curious to know what your response is. She silenced me. I feel silenced.
I'm not really sure how to respond to that because
Well, I'm also
I
thinking
don't
about
agree with.
let me throw something else.
Okay.
Let's
Throw
say
something else out there.
I'm listening to Thomas Curry, Dr. Thomas Curry wrote this book called Man Not.
Right.
Have you heard of that book?
Mhm.
There's a point in the book that he makes about black men and black women seeking feminism, and how feminism is something that you're trying to fight all of these things to get your man to give you. However, within the black community, these are things that the black man has already put on the table for black women well in advance. For instance, money. So when it comes to getting a job, it's been known for a long time that a black man has a hard time. There's very few households where the black man is making that much more money than a woman, and he has all for many years needed and seen and recognized the black woman as a financial partner and contributor to that family. So I think that black men get a bad rap for no reason. So when a black woman says to a black man, you know, you're not out there working, you're not making the money, you're not this, you toxic. That's not fair because it's white supremacy allow him to make that money, get that job, do what they allow the black woman to do.
See, so I guess as I'm processing what you're saying, this is where I think this is. I'm not in complete agreement with you, but that's fine. You know, um, I think that what frightens me or my hesitancy with that statement is that it puts us at a constant state of victimhood. And I struggle with that. Is there a reality of racism? Oh, I can give you stories. Obviously, any black man can. And but there's this constant when I look at everything and walk into every situation and automatically feel like I'm a victim. It's too easy to fall into that and to begin to to look for somebody else to resolve that for me. And somebody else is responsible for my condition and for my decisions. I can't. I, I'm not willing to take that personal responsibility off of me or of other men for the decisions that they've made. Sometimes we had this conversation at dinner several weeks ago. Some things are the consequence, are the result of decisions that we make. Yes, there are always factors that go into those decisions, but there are still I have the power to make certain decisions about who I am, how I will respond to life. Today at school, I work at a school as a counselor one day a week, and so just today at school, this girl ran up to me. She said, Mr. Perry, I got this problem," and she started telling me about what this girl said to her. She was all upset because this girl said this to her. I said, "Was it true?" "No." I said, "Then why are you letting her tie the puppet strings to you and play with your emotions?" I said, "Cut the strings. I said, get your emotional scissors and cut the strings." I said, "You are allowing her messiness to set your mood. Um, if that," I said, "don't let her problems become yours. You make a decision of how you will respond based upon what you believe and based upon your identity." And so, yeah, I've grown up my entire 60 years dealing with race and racism, whether it was in church, whether it was in school, whether it was in graduate school. I was at U of I, 1,300 students out of 35,000, 1,300 black students out of 35,000. And walking into a class and having a white teacher say to me, "I should let you know right now, well, I don't like black people." Well, there was only two brothers in the class, so I'm pretty sure she was talking to me. It was clear. And she proved it. And somebody said, "Will you drop the class?" I said, "Why would I drop the class? I paid as much money for this class as you did. She doesn't intimidate me." And so what I'm saying is that, yes, I deal with the racism, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to shape me and define me. And so I'm not willing to allow the negativity in somebody else's mess to become the defining factor in terms of who I am. I won't accept that victim mentality. And that's what that's what I get afraid of. But then I think the other thing that sometimes happens is that by always assigning everything to something that is external to me, it removes from me the responsibility I have to make my own decisions. And so, and to be held accountable for the decisions that I make. Last night, the young man, we were standing there and we were talking, and the young brother, I said, "What are you doing?" And he said to me, he said, "I'm taking care of my 1-year-old son." I said, "Okay." I said, "How you doing that?" He said, "You got a job?" "No." So I'm doing it, man. I'm doing what I do. And I said, "So is there another way you can do what you do in order to take care of your family?" "No, it's not. It's all I know." I said, "But yeah, I just spent 4 years with you in a mentoring program giving you other ways to do it. But you're still saying I don't have any options." We always have options.
Well, I think, Mr. Perry, real quick, because our waiter Jose Minute is right here with us. But the reason I say that is because if we're prisoners of war and we're all born into something like the analogy, if we're born into like a prison system, if we look at it like that, then we respond differently. And I think part of the reason why I keep giving this speech is because I see too many black people walking around blissful and acting as if we are not in that situation. And so now that most certainly does not cause me to say we should not stand, we should not fight, we should not try to be the best. Definitely have that spirit, of course. I think I need some more time to think and reflect as well on what you said, so that I can speak more properly.
So let me say this, and I know we got to move to the next segment, but I'll just say this in response. I understand what you're saying, is that if we are to the reality of war and to the reality of situations, and we don't deal with it.
Yeah, this is what I want to say. If you're born in the prison system, right, you may not know, but if you know, like for instance, we have our people are selling loose squares to the warden. Why would you do that? If you know that you're in a prison, our people running tattle to the warden all the time. So if you know that you're in a prison and you know that it is our job to escape, then you should be whispering stuff or selling loose squares to the people next to you. You shouldn't be running up, you know. We have way too much collaborators. But anyway, let me just
wait a Jose minute. Wait a Jose minute. What's up, Jose? How you doing, brother?
Hey, how y'all doing? First thing first. I want to make sure y'all can hear me because I'm using my car speaker. I just got off.
All
So
right.
can y'all hear me clear?
Absolutely.
Oh, you sound like you calling from, you know, the regular phone.
Cool. I caught the last 2 minutes on what y'all was saying, so I want to bring a couple of different perspectives in my little time. This is what I want to say. There's two things I want to say. The first one will be quick. Y'all could jump on it later, but the second one we'll spend a little time on. The first thing I want to say is there cannot be toxic masculinity without toxic femininity. It just can't be. So talking about one without the other doesn't make no sense. And the main thing I want to put on your mind is there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. It's all made up term.
Yeah.
If you remember the word drapetomania, drapetomania? Drapetomania was a disease during slavery. The slaves were diagnosed with drapetomania if they always wanted to escape. You can look it up. Every time a slave would escape, the medical community or the psychiatry or whatever it is back during that time frame came up with a term called drapetomania that describes slaves trying to escape for freedom. So same as toxic masculinity. It's just a term made up to freeze men in the position of stillness and not move. Because we got to look at what masculinity means from the get-go. Masculinity is protector, structure, leader, guide, family. So it can't be no toxic masculinity because it wouldn't be masculinity if anything somebody is doing on the negative level. So if they being abusive, violent, or whatever the case may be, it wouldn't fall in masculinity. It would probably fall into their emotions or just a male who haven't became a man yet and been able to self-discipline to prevent himself from doing those things. But toxic masculinity is something academia made up to freeze men in their track because it's something they got going on.
Interesting. That's a way to Jose minute right there.
Yes, sir. Unless you got something else you want to expand on. But I think when we're done, we're having I heard that like 15 minutes before I call in, but they got us talking about something that doesn't exist. There is no toxic masculinity. It's just a term they made up because it is a female empowerment movement that's taking place right now. And I use this as the example. I went to go see Terminator this weekend. Terminator had nothing to do with any males at all. It was all female. But reason there's no talk about it because if any man say something, they will be labeled as toxic masculine. Because of the toxic masculinity paradigm, you can't say anything that expresses how you feel about what you're saying. Like one example that they use, that academia use, or they talk about toxic masculinity is, say you have a mate, anyone of us males, we have a female mate, and she's spending too much money. She's expending too much and it's hurting our budget. So you decide to have a sit down with her and say, hey, you spending too much money or whatever. That will fall in toxic masculinity category because you're preventing her from expressing herself. That's why I
I
say
say
the term
you
toxic
said.
masculinity is only put in play to make men stand down.
I got you. I got you. I got your
Well,
point. I
see,
get your point.
that's what I was
Yeah, I get
thinking
your
too,
point.
because every single time I hear the phrase, I hear it when a man has said something to a woman that basically kind of checks her a little bit. Like if she's doing something she really just shouldn't be doing, and then he makes a comment about it, then the next phrase I hear is, "Oh, you so toxic. I'm so tired of this toxic masculinity." And I'm like, "What?" I'm
Absolutely.
like, "Where did that come
Absolutely.
from?" I honestly didn't even know, like, the definition that you read today, Mr. Perry. I never heard that before. I
I don't know if that I don't know if that's not a definition. That was more my description of the
Oh,
mindset. That wasn't a. I mean, I've
Let
seen
me
definitions. That you're right that it does come. That term did come out of academia. I agree. It
yes
actually
sir.
came
Yes
out.
sir.
It came out of psychology. In
Yes sir.
terms of that, that's where it came from.
Yes sir.
And I don't. But I think anything we say are terms we make up. And I think it's just simply it's a description of something. I think the problem, I don't have a problem with somebody coming up with a term to describe something. The question is, what do we do with those descriptions?
Right.
That's I don't have a problem with, I mean, to say something is blue. Well, it's a description. It's a term that describes. The problem is that when we start to use that description in unhealthy ways, to like what I agree with what you said, that sometimes we have taken people have taken those terms and they've used them to silence people. They've used them to hurt people. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a level of truth in the term. It's how we use those terms. And when we use that term to silence someone or to describe a whole gender, that's what's problematic. But I don't think that's the problem. I don't think the problem is with the term. The problem is how we use it. That's the distinction. That may be a nuance, but that's the distinction that I make.
Well,
Some.
let me. Can I add something right quick before I get off? I like to challenge him in there by saying I get what he's saying, but we talking about language usage. We talking about language usage. The term we're using right now is toxic masculinity and its purpose. What it is a weaponized term. So when we're dealing with something that's a weaponized term, that means we have to retitle it. That means the title that's being used to deal with us is an improper title because it's been weaponized now. So even though because you can call a couch a chair, you can call a chair a car. You can term things anything you want to, but it's dealing with language usage and the purpose for the name. The name has to have a purpose that fits what it's describing. Toxic masculinity is not properly describing what it's being used for. It's being used to shut people down. That's what the sole purpose is about. That's why it came out of academia. And I add this one last point. The reason you having a difficult time finding a definition for toxic masculinity, because it's a fluid definition, meaning anytime they come up with something, that'll be the new definition of it. Mm-hmm. It's fluid. It's a continuation, which means you could always use those. It falls in the word, I hate to use it, but it falls in this word, I don't know if I can use it. It falls in the same category as the word terrorist. Anybody can be classified as a terrorist. Mm-hmm. Because it's an open definition. So when you say toxic masculinity, it's a weaponized word. It's not even being used properly. That's why it falls just like drapetomania. That's why I'm challenging on that, because it doesn't change the fact during the 1800s, slaves wanted their freedom, was considered to have a disease called drapetomania. That's a label being placed on them, but it's an improper term. It's a weaponized term to get others to see, oh, that slave is sick. That's why he's trying to escape. So people that say, oh, he's a sick person, he's suffering from drapetomania, it's a misnomer. It has nothing to do with nothing. So if we're going to label something, it has to fit what is being used. It has to be fit what is being used, because the term toxic masculinity falls in the verb category. If you said color, that's just a noun. So we're going to use words that have verbs to it, because it's an action word. They have to have the proper term to it, and I'll leave it there.
Man, wait a Jose minute, man. Every week he calls in at 8:00 to give us a spin, just like the one he just gave us, man. We really appreciate the call, brother.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate y'all for letting me call.
Yeah. I deuces, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
So toxic
I
is
like
kind of like an adjective, and masculinity is
Yeah.
like a noun.
I like the way he said
But
that.
then you bring it together, and you're changing the word instead of looking at it as an adjective, like you described at the beginning of as it being an adjective. Like it could be man, woman. It
Right.
could be it could be any race.
Right. Yeah, I there's a lot that I could say about it. I think the one thing I shouldn't say the one thing, but one thing I did agree with him is that the term has become weaponized.
That's right. That's
I think that's
Oh, definitely.
absolutely
I think
true.
yeah, all three of
And
us
so,
agree
yeah,
on that.
I agree
Yes.
on that. I just don't. The reality is that again, we do negative things, but again, when you weaponize the term, it's like when I do marriage counseling, I often talk to people about creating safe places within their marriage. And I said, when you take a man's vulnerability, when he opens his heart to you, and then you can weaponize his vulnerability. That doesn't mean that. But see, you can take his vulnerability and his weakness and turn it into a weapon. But anything can be turned into a weapon. That doesn't mean that we don't turn around and say, now there's some validity. If you have a man who says, listen, I can beat women because women ain't nothing. I'm superior. Because I'm male, I'm superior, and therefore women should come and clip my toenails, and I should beat them and keep them in line.
Well, then I wouldn't
But-
call him toxic. I call him abusive.
No, I'm just, but you could call it anything you want to, but it's still within the construct of
Of
that
negative.
of negative. That's a negative. So you can call it whatever you want to. You can call it, whatever, but it's still the same. It's still, but sometimes we get caught up because we take words and they become negative, and they say, well, we got to knock out those words. I get that, but the description of the behavior is the description of the behavior, whatever you call it. So whether we call it toxic masculinity, whether we call it jackass alinity, whatever you want to call it, the behavior is the behavior. And I don't want us to lose sight of the behavior because we don't like the term.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So we can't lose sight of that. Listen,
It's hard to stay focused on the behavior when somebody is throwing that term at you in a weaponized manner.
right?
So,
Exactly.
so for instance, it actually is a deflective tool, an attack. I've always seen it as a tactic. Like this word, and he says a weaponized tool, and I use tactic. Like there's this Facebook groups that I'm in, and there'll be like the girl will say something, and then the man will say something back. But she might say something like, all men, or blah, blah, blah. And then the man will say something like, no, not all men, or something like that. Anyway, the conversation just goes, and I can't give you verbatim point by point by point because that's not my strength. I don't remember it like that. But what I do remember is woman says something, man says something in response to what woman said. And then woman shuts the whole conversation down by just saying, you toxic.
Okay, I'll give you one that I remember.
Okay, go ahead.
This happened to me this summer.
Okay.
I teach I won't give names. Okay. So I teach at an academy, and one of my classes, I have 20 17-year-olds. About half of the class more than half of the class was female. We were in a discussion, and I made a comment. They made a comment. I disagreed with it. And then one of the other girls came back and made a comment, and it was somewhere around this area. And I disagreed with it. I said, I just don't agree with that. Well, while I was talking, I said, you know what? Wait a minute. You know what? You got a point. I'm going to change my position. I agree with you. I literally said that, right? Well, they never heard, and so the girls shut down in the class. They shut down. Well, the next thing I know, I'm getting this letter from them that they stick into my phone, into my computer, telling me that I'm a misogynist, and that this is someplace I've been teaching for 17 years, and all of a sudden, I'm this misogynist that shuts down women. I said, because
you have a difference of opinion?
Right. It was that's what they said. What they said, it was a difference of opinion, but they said it wasn't right until you said it. I said I agreed with you. But all of a sudden, the narrative for them became, now I am this toxic man who does not listen to women. And so they start going around campus getting allies, trying to get allies. The problem is they went to the people that I mentored and they didn't realize it. And so they were going to all of the people, it's young ladies that I had mentored and young men that I had mentored. Well, Mr. Perry said so and so and so. And they were like, that's not who he is. That's not it. But that was their mindset. So from that standpoint, instead of us having a conversation, you heard and you didn't hear. And then when I said the next day, I said, no, what I said is I'd agree with you. Well, we never heard that. But then they jumped in. They weaponized it. So what I'm saying to you is that, yeah, but they could have called that anything. You could have called it, you could have labeled it anything. It's the action that's the problem. It is that mindset that we're constantly in battle with one another.
Well, in the story that you just told, the toxic part for me would not have been what they the part where they called you toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole behavior, you weren't the toxic part. The toxic part was everything that happened afterwards. When they make a statement, you disagree, you change your statement to agree, and then they go on the warpath.
Mm-hmm.
That warpath was toxic, because they could have come to you, because it's not restorative.
Right.
What's a word that's the opposite of restorative? It was destructive.
Right.
It was, at least, if we don't want to call it toxic, it was at least destructive, because a restorative conversation would have been in a with atmosphere.
Right.
Like, let's talk with you.
Right. And that's how they were counseled, but they didn't do that. So what I'm saying, but that's what I said earlier, is that you can't, and Jose said the same thing. You can't talk about toxic masculinity without talking about toxic femininity, because you can't talk about toxic masculinity without talking about toxic humanity. We jacked up. That's the reality of it.
One of my sister's friends, I was talking about on the way over here about this. My sis, she was saying the same thing. She said she really does not like the phrase, because it does not naturally bring in the fact that we are hurt. We need healing.
Right.
We are people who need healing.
Right.
And it doesn't bring that into the conversation.
We need healing. Not he need healing. Or just she need healing. We need healing. So I agree with that. And that's, to me, that's the fundamental problem. And I agree with them. The term divides us and it points its finger. I'm doing a retreat in a few weeks, and I was sitting at the restaurant today working on it. And one of the things I'm talking about, I'm having these young people do a presentation where I want them together. How do we have healthy male-female relationships where we get out of becomes conspirators and competitors and become complements,
and no more accusatory, like you said. That's that pointing the finger, labeling somebody as toxic is the same as you pointing the finger.
That's exactly,
because you don't know exactly why the person said or did what they did, or why they had whatever behavior they had.
Right.
And the only reason to really kind of get into why they chose the behavior or what their behavior was is to ask those questions.
That's exactly right.
And have that with conversation.
I agree.
Well, thank you very much for those points, Jose. Thanks for that call, because it really, you sparked up the rest of the conversation and made relevance the reason why we even had the conversation about validity, because it's a difficult conversation to have, because like most of us believe that it's made up terminology, but it was some things we just had to bang out on the subject. Real quick, Pastor Perry, I want you to tell us in your short version, your mission. What's your mission?
My mission is really become very simple. My mission, I talk about starting the gatekeeper movement. And the whole idea of gatekeepers is to bring men of respect back to the gates of our communities and of our families, of our homes, and bring respect back to the men who are there. There are brothers at the gates. There are men who are supposed to be gatekeepers, who are supposed to be the protectors, the providers, the wisdom bearers, the mediators, the storytellers, the history keepers. But if we're not at the gates, our families, our communities become vulnerable because there's nobody protecting the gates. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's part of our role as the male species. And when we're not there, our communities, our families, even ourselves become vulnerable. And so my whole mission right now is to raise up and help men be who they're supposed to be. Help young men who become who they're supposed to be, dealing with some of that negative, that junk in their past that keeps them from being that man, and then raising up men who can go back to our gates and our communities and stop complaining about the negativity and start doing some changing. And so, one of my missions right now is that in next August I'm going to be launching the Gatekeeper Center, which is it's going to be a leadership academy for young men, starting with 4th and 5th grade, where we are instilling 7 values in them, not just for that 2 weeks during the summer, but mentoring that goes all year round, where we're trying to say, how do we raise up a new generation with a different mindset? What's his name? Frederick Douglass said it's better to build strong children than to repair broken men. I want to start raising up some strong children so that we don't have to spend so much time talking about this kind of stuff of toxic masculinity.
30 seconds. What's your contact information, website?
OaktreeLeadership.com and J. Perry and Oak Tree, like the tree, Oak Tree. OaktreeLeadership.com. Oak Tree, there you go. Hey. So that's
Give it up for Mr. Jason Perry in the building. My man, thanks very much for coming through, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
All right. Well, anyway, that will conclude Shy Rise for this evening. We thank y'all for enduring this tough little subject that we had going on with toxic masculinity today. And we got a few minutes. We're going to listen to Anita and Moses do their thing.
The liberated lad.
Liberated lad in the building. Deuces.
Hello, welcome back to the Old to Moses Chronicles. How you got on IntellectualRadio.com? How you doing?
I'm doing well, Moses. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Really?
Really good.
This whole time I've been seeing you walking back and forth, pacing
I'm
and
super
stuff.
excited
What you so excited about?
to finally get this episode out.
Okay.
Today, we are going to do our NSA or essay or USA. If you weren't here the last episodes, well, the last episode before the last episode, we did this concept on black masculinity on NSA, USA, and essay, which means shaft approved, not shaft approved, ultimately shaft approved, which Shaft is the recent movie that just came out that was portrayed a very good black man that made me see something inside him. See myself inside him. It was a really good movie, and it really led me to read Shaft Approved, or not Shaft Approved, NSA USA, such. So today we are doing Gemini Man.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay. So what I was doing was I was going to our video so that I could look up your criteria. Or do you remember it?
No.
You don't remember the criteria?
No.
Well, in Gemini Man, I remember at least one of the things from your, if I can remember, one of the things from your criteria is a black man. So is there a black man in Gemini Man?
Yes.
In Gemini Man. And then
10 points.
10 points. So you get 10 points for that. Okay. And then I also remember, was it funny? Comedy was one of your things. Do you have?
It was comedy. Comedy is like bonus points.
It was, I don't know. I don't think it was real funny. It was kind of serious.
It had certain times it was funny, like that ending. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
No
That's one of the
spoilers.
really things. That's one of the things that I like the most about your criteria is it doesn't spoil the movie.
Unless the ending is that he actually was something else, and I'm like, say you have to figure out why.
Okay. So, and what else, Moses? Come on, talk to me.
We also did have for him to take care of his family and to take care of have a father-son relationship.
But he did not.
No, but would you think like Junior being like kind of like son? Because it came from him.
Kinda. In a weird way. Okay.
In a weird way.
Okay, so family, we'll give him 10 points for family.
Also, we did talk about like actually having like a black woman or
Oh, in a relationship? Nope, he didn't have that.
no, he didn't have it. I don't think he had a relationship.
No.
No.
And then his co-star is a white woman.
Yeah.
So that's not building up the family in that way. He did protect her. He was very good at protecting her, but
And protect himself.
he was good at protecting himself. Confident.
Confident. He was
confident. Yeah, definitely he was confident. We can give him 10 points for that.
20 points now. Like,
so we got 30 points now.
Oh yeah, 30
the
points.
family. I'm trying to go back to your criteria. He was highly intelligent.
Yes, 10 points.
Because he was intelligent and he was, definitely had all that good action. Okay.
50 points. Almost there and be like,
I don't know. I think he lacks it's lacking the comedy. There's no comedy. For comedy, it's not really a funny movie.
well,
so
we
there's
could give it
zero
like
points
5 points for comedy.
You want 5 points for comedy?
Because like there wasn't that much comedy. It wasn't funny, hilarious, but there's still some comedy in there.
Okay, it's your criteria.
And what else did we have? But so
protection. And he protected himself.
Yeah, he protected himself. He protected others.
Yeah, he was a good guy. All right. Do you have this as part of your criteria where they have to give back to the community or be nice to the community, take care of the community?
No, could we add it? I mean, it was.
I think you do actually. That
bonus?
Is no, that's part of the criteria. I'm pretty sure there's like a community involvement. He cares about the community.
Does he care about the community?
All that killing he did.
Oh.
Because he is an assassin.
Yeah,
but
he was also a good assassin.
He's a pretty good assassin.
I can't remember. Also, he wasn't like some.
But he wasn't a. I don't know if I should say this because this might be a spoiler. Like if there's a such thing as a good assassin or a humanitarian assassin, like is there such a thing?
Yes. I would say yeah.
Then that would be him. All right. So far he has 10, 20, 30, 40, 55 points.
55 points. You're
So
almost there. You're at F.
I don't
60 to D.
it's not a essay or USA. I guess you just for it sounds to me like Gemini is just
Well, we haven't seen the
an
list
essay.
yet, so we haven't went down everything.
Okay, how about this? I look for the list and then you tell the people about the video game that you just recently got that you wanted to share with the people. Can you talk about that while I look for the list?
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So recently, I just got a game called Fallout 76, and Fallout is a franchise on what's when the if the nuclear apocalypse happened and a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and you're supposed to survive. And I was gonna do something on how Fallout 76 was kind of good and it was kind of underestimated, but I'm not. Don't get me wrong, it still was kind of garbage. Like there is certain stuff that.
Hold on, I thought you said it was underrated.
Yeah, it was underrated, kind of underrated. Did you not hear me?
Okay, so talk about the underrated part. Like, why did when we went to the store, the person was like, "Oh no, you probably don't want to get this game," and you found out, "Oh yeah, I do like this game."
Well,
let's hear that.
one, it was created by Besada. Most times Besada doesn't have like a good reputation of video games. There's a lot of bad games that are created that overweights the good games. So like instantly people were quick to judge. Also, it was gonna be multiplayer. Lots of people were interested in that, but others were like, I don't know if you should do it like this, because once you add multiplayer into games, people just think it's gonna make it better. And I was kind of interested in seeing Fallout with multiplayer because it sounded interesting because of how inside the post-apocalyptic wasteland where people just start shooting you and you're always scared to like if someone's over there or something's gonna happen. Like it keeps you on edge. But it wasn't like that when I actually got it. It's still fun. Like the game's fun when you have friends to play with. Like when you're playing offline, it's not really that fun because it's mainly for playing with friends. So you don't get the good experience. The game's also kind of hard. But the good parts
What's hard about the game?
There's a lot of enemies. It's like for new players it's kind of hard on. And just you have to be a certain level to get a certain item be able to use a certain item. Like you might have I have this super powerful weapon inside my the best weapon in the game inside my inventory, just sitting there chilling, but never is gonna be used because I'm not a certain level yet, which makes it you have to grind to be able to beat bosses, which means it takes time, so you won't be able to know if the bosses are gonna be good or like if you want to turn it in or complete it in a certain amount of time, it's gonna take you some time. And
so it's a slow game.
It's a slow game, but also it doesn't really live up to its expectations. The expectations that it said, like it's talking about how it's gonna be a good game and stuff. But so since it was mainly supposed to be focused on multiplayer, it's not good in certain areas on single player because it's just boring at certain times.
So how can you make this? How do you help somebody pick out games? Like, when I'm with you at the game store, it's very difficult. You're making a decision based on what, I guess it's kind of like watching a movie, right? You're making a decision based on what other people are saying about it.
Well, that's also the thing, and I was kind of...
So you don't know until you actually play it.
Yeah, but some people have actually played Fallout 76. They had a beta. Something that came out was basically like a demo.
You know,
But
you that game talk. I don't even know. I don't even know what a beta. What's a beta?
beta's like, can't explain it. Something that be. I can't explain it. Like like a demo.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
It's like a demo, but it's like something that's not a full thing.
Okay. Well, listen. Is it okay if I interrupt you now? I found the list.
Okay, and we can talk about it later.
Okay. So going back to Gemini man, these are the questions. Masculinity.
Yes, he's totally
Black masculine, right?
10 points.
10 points. Protect self, family, or community.
Protects self, family, and community. He protects self. He protects. I won't say he has any family.
Okay.
Minus.
So we'll give him. So what you minus 10, or are you gonna give him
We
5 for that?
minus stuff once it's not like
Okay.
So
Or he's a 0 there.
yes, it's just let's just add 0.
Okay. So black masculinity, 10 points. Integrity. Does he have integrity?
Yeah.
Okay, 10
10
points
points.
for that. So that's 20. Pride, confidence. Pretty
He's
confident.
pride. He does have some pretty confidence, so that's like 40 points.
No, you only can get 10, right? There's 10. There's gonna be 10 things.
I mean, no. You said
No, just
two.
one. Pride and confidence are 1.
pride and confidence.
Well,
are 1.
yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay, so it's 30 points.
Yeah, okay, 30. All right.
Okay, so it's currently now at an 85.
Now, here's the thing. They did not make him out to be a heterosexual male because he doesn't have a girlfriend. Oh, no, he did. He said back when I was 20, I would have. So yeah, so you got 10 points for that.
10 points.
Then family working together. Again, we got to put a 0 for that because it's not really family. Intelligent.
Very.
So we back up to 50. In good health.
Wait, actually, I thought it was at 85 because
Okay, starting over. Black masculinity.
10 points.
He protects himself or his family as a community. He's really good at protecting himself, but
10 points and the 0 off for that.
so we got a 0 because even though he protects himself, he does not protect the family and the community.
10 points.
He doesn't really care about that.
And,
Integrity,
10 points.
yes. Confident,
10 points.
heterosexual,
10 points.
family working together,
0 points.
intelligent. Yes.
10 points.
Man is brilliant.
So now we're up to 50.
Okay.
And
In good health. He's in very good health.
10 points. He even brags about it.
Yes, he does. Has a good relationship with women. No, he doesn't.
No. 0 points. What's next?
Let me see. That's it.
That's it?
I don't know why, but I only have 6 things.
So let's do the bonus. Like, what's the.
Oh, comedy.
Yes. 5 points.
There's no points for the comedy. Oh, you said 5.
Yeah.
Okay, 5.
Because, like, there's still a little comedy.
So it sounds to me, Moses, like you gave him 65 points.
Oh, he was so close to being NSA.
So what do you have to do to get to be essay?
Essay would be like
100 points would be
100 points would still be essay, but above 100 would be USA.
It's kind of like ABC.
Kind of like a test. Have you
Okay.
ever done a test? Like 70 points is an essay.
Yeah, 70 points would be a
70
C.
to 99 is essay. I mean,
Okay.
70 to 100 is essay.
Gemini Man is about an assassin with who turns out to have a heart, but there's another. He has a clone,
Okay, so
and that's why Moses was kind of feeling like family because the clone is
kind of like a son.
Will Smith.
We can also
Will
get
Smith played in Gemini Man.
points on like what do you think we can also get points on?
Oh, that's up to you.
I can think we can get points on basically visuals.
Yes, nice action.
Nice action, nice visuals. Wait, action was one.
It sounds to me like you want to make an essay. Do you want to make
action
Gemini?
was literally one other thing. Did we say
Hold on,
action?
because you're adding stuff to it. Like you're feeling bad that his score is so low. Like you really want Gemini Man to at least be essay. You want it to be
I
Shaft
feel like
approved, but
Gemini Man was Shaft approved, but like I don't think my point system got like actually to it because of
it's okay, Moses. If a movie that you liked is not Shaft approved, you could say, "Hey, I liked it, I enjoyed it, but it's not Shaft approved. Go see it if you want to." You
Okay.
could tell the family that.
That's right.
Okay.
It's not Shaft approved.
Moses put a stamp on that. Okay, but go see it if you want to, family.
Go see it if you want to. Not Shaft approved to me.
Okay, Moses, let's close this out. Say goodnight to the
I thought
people.
we didn't get to finish the video games.
Oh, okay, because we only have a couple minutes left. What else would you like to say? I'm looking at the time. I'm your timekeeper. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Okay.
I was gonna also say that Fallout 76 was underrated because of how.
So this is what you like about it.
But I like about it because it's the fun. It's like you get to have, if you have people, there's new stuff like vending machines where you can trade in some stuff for money and then go there and got the exact same thing that you traded in and take it out. And you can do like a whole entire trade. And you can also go to the store and buy stuff, but I just like action. The visuals aren't great. I mean, it's still getting patched up. It's still getting better, but it doesn't have NPC characters. I mean, it does have NPCs, but it doesn't have like human NPCs. So all the people that you trade with are robots, and the only people that you actually get to see are actual humans, actual people. And when you have to start a fight between two people, you shoot that person, and he has to shoot you back. That it delays the like adrenaline in PvP. Like usually, sometimes in games you'd be super excited just to get inside a PvP battle, and you never know when it's gonna happen. But when someone shoots you, you're like, well, that delays the it's not an adrenaline rush anymore. Doesn't feel good. And I do think it's kind of underrated, but I would feel to fix it.
Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I would recommend it a bit. If to people who have friends on Xbox or PlayStation, and people who like Fallout series and have friends.
Fallout 76 is not a bad game, is what I'm hearing you say.
It's not a bad game, is what I'm trying to say, but still not the best game. Like, it's so close. I mean, certain times, if a game's so bad, it can become good.
All right, then. It sounds like you've heard it here from Moses on the Ode to Moses Chronicles.
On IntellectualRadio.com.
On IntellectualRadio.com.
Next time, we will do The Lion King.
You want to do The Lion King?
And then next time, we'll also do a whole entire another game.
All right, then.
To be continued.
To be continued.
On the Ode to Moses Chronicles.
Check you out later. Bye, family. Mwah.
Mwah.
Thank you.
So you want to get a chicken sandwich?
Moses.